My dad runs this city. Get your hands off me. The crack of an open palm against flesh echoed through the Providence Municipal Courtroom. Officer Collins, the bailiff who had served Judge Frank Caprio's court for 11 years, stumbled back a step, more from shock than from force. A 19-year-old woman stood trembling with rage, her hands still raised, her eyes wild with the absolute certainty that she had just done something without consequences. She was wrong. What Amelia Rhodes didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined in that moment of fury, was that her father, Mayor Daniel Rhodes of Providence, had made a phone call to the court 3 days earlier. A phone call that would shatter every assumption she had built her identity upon. A call in which the mayor had said something that no one in this courtroom expected. Don't give her special treatment. I'm done protecting her. The case that brought Amelia here was serious enough on its own. She had nearly struck a 72-year-old disabled veteran in a crosswalk. Harold Jenkins, 3 tours in Vietnam, partial paralysis from a helicopter crash in 1972, had been crossing legally when Amelia's convertible came within inches of ending his life. She had screamed at him to move faster, then screamed at the responding officer that her father would bury his career. But now in the space of 3 seconds, she had added assault on a court officer to her charges. Tell us where you're watching from, because what happened next in this Providence courtroom became one of the most viewed moments in the history of this channel. The clock showed 10:11 a.m. Thursday morning. Case number 2026 CIV 5518 had just become something far more serious. And a young woman who believed her last name made her untouchable was about to discover what accountability actually looks like. Officer Collins touched his cheek, then looked at Judge Caprio. The courtroom was silent. Judge Caprio removed his glasses slowly. He set them on the bench with the kind of deliberate motion that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Miss Rhodes, I'm going to give you exactly one opportunity to apologize to Officer Collins before I add assault on a court officer to your existing charges. Amelia's chin lifted. I'm not apologizing for anything. He grabbed my arm. He was directing you to the defendant's table. That is his job. His job is to serve my father's city, not to touch me. Miss Rhodes, this is your final warning. My dad is the mayor. Do you understand that? The mayor, one phone call, and you're... Ms. Hart, please add assault on a court officer and contempt of court to the defendant's charges. The clerk nodded grimly and began writing. 10:13 a.m. Assault on court officer added to charges. Contempt of court added. Defendant showing no remorse. Bailiff Officer Collins confirmed uninjured, but visibly shaken. This is ridiculous, Amelia said. My father will end this hearing in 5 minutes. Your father isn't here, Miss Rhodes. He will be, and when he arrives, you'll understand exactly how much trouble you're in. Judge Caprio studied the young woman in front of him. 19 years old, no prior criminal convictions, but a pattern in her file that painted a troubling picture. Complaints dismissed, incidents buried, a lifetime of problems that had mysteriously evaporated before they could become consequences. Let me read you your original charges, Miss Rhodes. Ms. Hart. The clerk adjusted her microphone. Case number 2026 CIV 518. Original charges: reckless endangerment, failure to yield to a pedestrian in a marked crosswalk. Additional charges as of 10:13 a.m. Assault on a court officer, contempt of court. Those charges are fake, Amelia said. The old man was walking too slow, and your bailiff shouldn't have touched me. The confidence in Amelia's voice was a performance. Judge Caprio had spent decades reading defendants, and he could see the fear underneath the bravado. This was a young woman who had never faced a situation her father couldn't fix. The unfamiliarity of accountability was making her desperate. Miss Rhodes, let me ask you something. When you struck Officer Collins, what did you think would happen? I thought he'd back off. And when he didn't, I figured my dad would handle it, like he always does. How exactly does your father handle situations like this? Amelia smiled. It was the kind of smile that suggested she was sharing a joke that only powerful people understood. My dad controls this courthouse. He controls the police. He controls everything in this city. One word from him and problems disappear. Text screenshot submitted as evidence. From Amelia to friend. Dated that morning, 9:47 a.m. On my way to court, some bailiff tried to tell me where to stand. I'm going to handle him when I get there. My dad owns these people. Judge Caprio read the text aloud. Amelia's smile flickered. That text was private. It was submitted as evidence by an anonymous source. The question is whether it accurately reflects your intentions this morning. I didn't mean I was going to hit him. I'm going to handle him. What did you mean, Miss Rhodes? Amelia was quiet for the first time since the hearing began. I asked you a question. I meant I would make sure he knew who I was, who my father was. And you believed that would protect you from consequences? It always has before. The side door opened. A man walked into the courtroom. He was in his mid-50s, with the kind of posture that suggested years of public appearances and press conferences. But today, his shoulders were curved inward. His face carried an expression that Amelia had clearly never seen before. Mayor Daniel Rhodes looked broken. Your Honor, he said quietly, may I approach? You may. The mayor walked past his daughter without looking at her. Amelia's confident posture crumbled. Dad? Dad, what are you doing here? Did you come to stop this? He didn't respond. 10:27 a.m. Mayor Daniel Rhodes enters courtroom. Defendant appears confused. Mayor requests permission to observe and address the court. Dad, tell them who I am. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Mayor Rhodes finally turned to face his daughter. Amelia, I need you to be quiet and listen. Not argue, not explain. Listen. But I said listen. The word cracked through the courtroom like a whip. Amelia fell silent. Judge Caprio watched the exchange carefully. Mayor Rhodes, you said you wanted to address the court. I'll give you that opportunity after we hear testimony from the responding officer. Officer Turner? Officer Malik Turner took the witness stand. He was the officer who had responded to the crosswalk incident 2 weeks earlier. Officer Turner, can you describe what you observed when you arrived at the scene? Yes, Your Honor. I responded to a call about a near collision at the crosswalk on Westminster Street. When I arrived, I found Mr. Jenkins, the victim, on the sidewalk. He was in his wheelchair, visibly shaken. Several bystanders were trying to calm him down. What was his condition? He was trembling, Your Honor. He told me that a vehicle had come so close to hitting him that he felt the wind from it pass his face. He said if his chair had been 6 inches further into the crosswalk, he would have been killed. Did you locate the defendant? Yes. Miss Rhodes had pulled her vehicle to the side of the road about half a block away. When I approached, she immediately told me that her father was the mayor and that I should think very carefully about my next move. Body cam audio excerpt. Officer Turner, 3:42 p.m. Ma'am, I need to see your license and registration. Do you have any idea who my father is? Ma'am, regardless of who your father is, I need to see your documentation. My father is the mayor of this city. One phone call and your career is over. Think about that before you write anything down. Judge Caprio let the audio finish. Then he looked at Harold Jenkins, the disabled veteran who was seated in the gallery. Mr. Jenkins, would you like to address the court? The elderly man wheeled himself forward slowly. His movements were careful, deliberate, the movements of someone who had learned to navigate a world that wasn't built for him. Your Honor, I served 3 tours in Vietnam. I was 22 years old when a helicopter crash took most of the function in my legs. I've spent 52 years learning how to live in this chair. He paused. When that car came at me, I thought I was going to die. Not in a war zone, not serving my country, but in a crosswalk in Providence, because some girl in a fancy car didn't want to wait 5 seconds. Amelia looked away. And then when the officer came, I heard her screaming about her father, about phone calls, about ending careers, and I thought, this is what I fought for? So that entitled children could threaten people for doing their jobs? Amelia's facade was cracking, but she wasn't ready to surrender yet. Your Honor, I think this is all being blown out of proportion. My father will explain. Your father is here, Miss Rhodes, and I don't think he's going to explain what you're hoping he'll explain. Mayor Rhodes stood slowly. Your Honor, I owe this court an apology and an explanation. Please proceed. For 19 years, I have protected my daughter from the consequences of her actions. When she was expelled from private school for bullying, I had her transferred instead. When she crashed her first car while texting, I paid off the other driver. When she screamed at a restaurant server until the young woman cried, I made the complaint disappear. He paused. I told myself I was being a good father. I told myself I was protecting my family. But I was wrong. I was teaching her that she was above accountability. I was creating the person you see in front of you today. Voicemail transcription. Mayor's office to court. 3 days prior. This message is from the office of Mayor Daniel Rhodes. The mayor wishes to make clear that he will not be intervening in case number 2026 CIV 518. Any suggestion that the mayor's office has attempted to influence this proceeding is false. The mayor requests that his daughter be treated exactly as any other defendant would be treated. He further notes that he is deeply ashamed of her behavior and supports whatever ruling the court deems appropriate. Judge Caprio read the transcription aloud. Amelia's face went white. Dad, you didn't. You said you'd fix this. I said I'd handle it, and this is how I'm handling it. By abandoning me. By finally being the father I should have been from the beginning. The courtroom was silent. Judge Caprio let the moment hold before speaking. Mayor Rhodes, I want to make sure I understand. You're asking this court to treat your daughter without any special consideration? I'm asking you to hold her accountable, Your Honor. Something I should have demanded years ago. And the assault on Officer Collins? The contempt? Those charges are appropriate. She struck a court officer in front of a judge, in front of witnesses, in front of cameras. There should be consequences. Amelia was crying now, not the calculated tears of someone trying to manipulate a situation, but the genuine tears of someone whose entire worldview had just collapsed. Dad, please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You did mean to, Amelia. That's the problem. You meant to hit him because you thought it wouldn't matter. You thought I would make it go away, like I've made everything else go away. Like this video if you miss Judge Caprio, because this is exactly the kind of moment that made his courtroom legendary. Your Honor, the mayor continued, there's something else you should know, something I've never told Amelia. Please. My father, Amelia's grandfather, was a veteran, Korean War. He came home with injuries that affected him for the rest of his life. He spent his final years in a VA hospital, struggling for basic dignity. Amelia looked up. Grandpa was a veteran? You never told me that. Because I was ashamed. Not of him, of myself, of what I'd become. My father taught me that service means sacrifice. That character means treating everyone with respect, regardless of their position, and I failed those lessons. I raised a daughter who screams at veterans in crosswalks because they're too slow. 11:03 a.m. Mayor Rhodes reveals family veteran connection. Defendant visibly shaken. Courtroom silent. Judge Caprio removed his glasses again. Miss Rhodes, I want you to understand what has just happened. Your father, the man you believed would protect you from any consequence, has publicly asked this court to hold you accountable. He has revealed that he has spent 19 years enabling behavior that he now recognizes as destructive, and he has connected your treatment of Mr. Jenkins to a family legacy of service that you apparently knew nothing about. Amelia wiped her eyes. I didn't know about any of it. Would it have changed what you did? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. That uncertainty is the problem, Miss Rhodes. You should treat people with dignity regardless of their background. Not because they might be connected to someone you care about, but because they're human beings who deserve respect. Judge Caprio turned to his notes. I've heard enough to make a ruling. Miss Rhodes, I'm finding you responsible on all charges. Reckless endangerment, failure to yield to a pedestrian in a marked crosswalk, assault on a court officer, and contempt of court. Amelia nodded. She no longer had the energy to object. The assault charge is the most serious. You struck a court officer, a man who has served this court faithfully for 11 years, because you believed you were above the rules. That belief ends today. He paused. Officer Collins, would you like to make a statement? The bailiff stepped forward. His cheek was still slightly red, where Amelia had struck him. Your Honor, I've been doing this job for a long time. I've been yelled at, cursed at, threatened, but I've never been physically assaulted in this courtroom until today. He looked at Amelia. I don't want revenge. I want her to understand that I'm a person, that I have a family, a life, dignity, that I'm not just an obstacle between her and whatever she thinks she deserves. Sentencing timeline, case 2026, CIV 5518, days 1 to 7. Written apology to Officer Collins and Mr. Jenkins, court reviewed, days 1 to 90. 150 hours community service with veterans organizations, days 1 to 30, complete courthouse respect and conduct, program immediate, $400 fine, $700 suspended pending completion of requirements. Day 90, follow-up hearing to assess compliance. Here is what I'm ordering, Judge Caprio said. First, you will write letters of apology to both Officer Collins and Mr. Jenkins. Real letters, your own words, your own understanding of what you did and why it was wrong. These letters will be reviewed by the court before they're delivered. Yes, Your Honor. Second, you will complete 150 hours of community service with veterans organizations, not administrative work. Direct service. You will spend time with men and women who sacrificed for this country and learn what real service looks like. I understand. Third, you will complete a courthouse respect and conduct program. You will learn how courts function, why they matter, and what it means to treat officers of the court with basic human dignity. Okay. Fourth, you will pay a fine of $400. I'm suspending $700 of that fine pending successful completion of your other requirements. If you fail to complete them, you'll pay the full amount plus additional penalties. Yes, sir. Finally, you will return to this courtroom in 90 days for a follow-up hearing. At that hearing, I will assess your compliance, your attitude, and your transformation. Do you understand all of these terms? I do, Your Honor. Good. Because I want to be very clear about something. If you fail to complete these requirements, if you show disrespect to any veteran, any court officer, any person during your service, you will return to this courtroom in handcuffs. And the conversation we have then will be very different from the one we're having now. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Amelia Rhodes had ever experienced. She showed up at the Providence Veterans Center on her first day expecting hostility, and she found it. Word had spread about who she was and what she had done. The veterans didn't care about her father's position. They cared about the fact that she had nearly killed one of their own and then screamed about her connections. Case follow-up log, week 2. Defendant has completed 18 of 150 required hours. Initial attitude described as defensive but present. Staff notes defendant seems uncomfortable with direct contact with residents. Assigned to facilities maintenance for first 2 weeks. They gave her a mop. For the first 2 weeks, Amelia cleaned floors, scrubbed bathrooms, washed dishes. She was invisible to the veterans, just another person doing menial work while they went about their days. It was humbling in a way she had never experienced. By week 3, something shifted. A Korean War veteran named George asked her to help him with his physical therapy exercises. His daughter usually helped, but she was out of town. Amelia agreed, expecting it to be simple. It wasn't. George couldn't lift his left arm above his shoulder. The exercises were painful, tedious, repetitive. And George talked the entire time about his service, about his friends who didn't make it home, about the day everything changed. You know what the hardest part is? George asked her one afternoon. What? Coming home. People think war is the hard part, but at least in war, everyone understands what you're going through. Coming home is lonely. You're surrounded by people who have no idea what you've seen, what you've done, what you've lost. Amelia thought about Harold Jenkins, about the way she had screamed at him in that crosswalk. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what? For not understanding, for not even trying to understand. And then there was the courthouse program. Amelia spent 3 full days learning about the justice system, about bailiffs and clerks and judges, and the thousands of small interactions that make courts function. She learned that Officer Collins had a wife and 2 children, that he had once talked a suicidal defendant off a ledge during a recess, that he showed up every day to do a job that most people never thought about. She wrote him a letter, a real letter. It took her 4 drafts to get it right. I struck you because I thought you were beneath me. I was wrong. You're a better person than I ever was, and I'm sorry. Week 8 brought the meeting she had been dreading. Harold Jenkins was at the Veterans Center for his regular appointment. Amelia saw him across the lobby and felt her stomach drop. She walked over slowly. "Mr. Jenkins?" The elderly veteran looked up. Recognition flickered in his eyes. And something else. Wariness. "You're the girl from the crosswalk." "Yes, sir, I am." "You've been working here." "Yes, sir." "It's part of my sentence. But that's not why I'm still coming." Harold studied her for a long moment. "Why are you still coming?" "Because I needed to understand. What I did to you wasn't just reckless driving. It was dehumanizing. I treated you like an obstacle instead of a person. I screamed at you about my father's position as if that made me better than you." She paused. "You served 3 tours in Vietnam. You sacrificed your mobility for this country. And I almost killed you because I was in a hurry." Harold was quiet for a while. "I got your letter." "You did?" "Your lawyer delivered it, or your father's lawyer. Whoever. I wrote it myself, every word. I could tell. It was honest. Awkward, but honest. Mr. Jenkins, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand now what you went through, what you still go through, and I'm ashamed of who I was that day." Harold wheeled himself closer. "You know what I've learned in 72 years? People can change. Not everyone does. Most don't. But some people hit a wall and finally look in the mirror. I think you might be one of those people. I'm trying to be. That's all any of us can do." 90 days after her initial hearing, Amelia Rhodes returned to Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. She looked different. Not dramatically, no Hollywood transformation. But the arrogance was gone. The entitlement had faded into something quieter, more uncertain, but also more real. "Miss Rhodes," Judge Caprio said, "I see you've completed all terms of your sentence. 150 hours of community service. The fine paid. The courthouse program completed. The letters delivered." "Yes, Your Honor." "The reports from the Veterans Center say you continued volunteering after your required hours were complete. Is that accurate?" "Yes, sir. I still go 3 times a week. I help George with his physical therapy. I read to some of the residents who have vision problems. I didn't want to stop." "Why not?" Amelia took a breath. "Because I met people who changed me. George, who can barely lift his arm, but still has more dignity than I ever had. Harold Jenkins, who forgave me even though he had every reason not to. Officer Collins, who accepted my apology even after I humiliated him in front of this entire courtroom." She paused. "I continued because I realized I had been living in a bubble where my father's position made me special, where rules were for other people, where I could treat human beings like obstacles. I don't want to live in that bubble anymore." Mayor Daniel Rhodes was in the gallery. He stood slowly. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" "Please." The mayor walked forward. 3 months ago, I stood in this room and admitted that I had failed my daughter, that I had spent 19 years protecting her from consequences, and that it had made her worse instead of better." He looked at Amelia. "I want to say publicly that I'm proud of her now. Not because she completed her sentence, though she did. Not because she stayed out of trouble, though she has, but because she chose to become someone different. She chose accountability over entitlement. She chose growth over comfort. Dad, I'm sorry for all of it." "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry too. For not being the father you needed." Subscribe if you're over 50 and love real justice. Because moments like this are why this courtroom became sacred to so many people. Judge Caprio leaned forward. "Miss Rhodes, I want to leave you with something. You came into this courtroom 3 months ago and struck a court officer because you believed you were untouchable. You screamed about your father's position as if it made you royalty. You treated a disabled veteran like an inconvenience. I was wrong about everything. You were, but being wrong isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. The question is always what comes next. Whether you return to your old life of privilege and protection, or whether you build something better. I want to build something better, Your Honor. I don't know exactly what that looks like. But I know it starts with treating people like they matter, regardless of who their parents are." Officer Collins was standing near the side door, where he always stood. Amelia turned to face him. Officer Collins, I know I apologized in my letter, but I wanted to say it here, in the same room where I hit you 3 months ago. I am deeply, truly sorry, not because I got caught, not because my father made me, because I hurt you. I disrespected you. I treated you like you didn't matter. The bailiff nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Rhodes. I hope you can forgive me someday. I already have. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel. Case closed, Miss Rhodes. But remember, accountability isn't a punishment. It's a gift. It's the thing that lets us become better than we were. Don't waste it. I won't, Your Honor. I promise. The gavel fell. And in a Providence courtroom, a young woman who had once believed she was above the law discovered that the only thing that truly matters is the person you choose to become. Dramatization for storytelling and education, not legal advice or reporting.